Welcome back to the MetaMinds podcast. MetaMinds Online is a mentoring service that helps conscious people destroy limiting beliefs so that they can unlock the life of their dreams. On today's podcast, we had Dr. Hannah Korrel, and she talks about her new book, How to Break Up with Friends. We talk a lot about friendships and how you can get rid of toxic friends and actually recognize what toxic friends are, and the benefits of actual positive friendships and the negative side to negative friendships. There is so much relevance and value in this podcast. It's very timely given the events of 2020, and it definitely hits deep. And I learned a lot myself, especially from the science side of it, which there's no woo-woo here.
Yeah, it's a lot of neuroscience kind of backing the research, backing everything that she's talking about. So this is the neuroscience on friendship. So it's basically, like you were saying, what actually happens to your brain when you're in a toxic friendship, why we stay in toxic friendships, and how the brain tries to keep homeostasis, even if you're in a situation that isn't pleasant. But if there's a pattern that you're used to, then potentially you can get caught up in a loop of a toxic friendship. But there's a lot in here about different genders as well, and what's different for a man and for a woman who are experiencing toxic friendships. And there's just so much in here about just friendship in general. Like, it's such an interesting topic that I don't think is spoken about enough. So it was fascinating to hear the science behind it, and how you can be aware of toxic friendships, and also how you can make friends, how you can be aware of your value, and what a good friend looks like as well.
So no matter who you are, you'll definitely get some value out of this, enough out of S. Thank you for getting meta with us, and enjoy the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Hannah, for joining us today, and really excited to learn about how to break up with friends and how you kind of got into the space of neuroscience within the friendship space. So I think to give people a bit of context, and so we kind of understand where you're coming from, how did you get first a passion for this space of neuroscience? And what kind of got you into that space?
Oh, that is a good question, Dan. I started, did my undergrad, my honors, and my master's and my PhD. So many moons ago, way back when I was, a young, early 20s. I think I was 17 actually when I started my Bachelor of Psychology, Bachelor of Science in Psychology. And a lecturer was reading a passage of Oliver Sacks's book. It's called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, which is all of these amazing neurological conditions that our brain does when certain parts don't work. So being unable to recognize objects anymore. And that just was the first thing that really wet my whistle in terms of wanting to study neuropsychology and neuroscience. And then after that, it was kind of just me following my passion and my interest areas and things that I really found intriguing. And I also happened to be quite good at it as well. So that was really helpful. When I got through honors, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I finished honors. So there might be a lot of undergrad psychology students listening to this. So I had no idea what I was going to do when I finished honors. And it could have been clinical psychology. It could have been neuropsychology. I thought about org psych. And so I just applied widely to all the different courses. And the one that I got into that really lit my soul on fire was neuropsych down in Melbourne. So I knew that was the area I was interested in. And then I also just was a glutton for punishment and decided to do a PhD in neuroscience as well, because I friggin' love the brain. I'm a bit of a zombie, so I love the brain. And that it's just been a passion ever since. I love knowing, why do we do the things that we do? Why does our brain make us do the things that we do? And what's the neurotransmitter? What's the neurobiological reason why we do the stuff we do? Because the answers are always truly fascinating. And I think, when you know why your brain does the stuff that it does, it makes it so much easier to accept it and move forward.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And it proves that you're a very fitting guest, because we also like to explore why we do things, obviously Dan's been a counselor, so he's gone through some of the study route that you have. And it definitely lights us on fire when we see people that in their topic get lit on fire from what they're passionate about. So that's really awesome to see. So I suppose
thanks, Eamon.
A little bit of an odd question. Has it ruined anything for you? Now that you know why we do things, you're obviously very aware of why you do things. Has it ruined anything for you, or are you just able to see it and go, I see what I'm doing now, I need to do this?
Ruin the passion.
No, not the passion, just like in life.
I think
with behaviors and stuff like.
Yeah. The only annoying thing about being a psychologist and a neuropsychologist and a neuroscientist is when I go on dates, I find people often say to me, are you reading my mind and don't psychoanalyze me? And I'm like, honey, only if you pay me. Like, I'm not doing that for free. But no, if anything, it's really enriching for me to be able to sort of, when I interact with people, and especially when I work on a psychiatric ward at the moment, part-time on one of the hospitals here in Sydney. And it's been really enriching to be able to come to the mental health space, which is often shrouded in this stigma that mental health is a bit of a luxury. Like, oh, you've got depression, like you're so entitled that you could feel sorry for yourself with this abundance of things around you. And people don't seem to understand that emotional pain is just as real and just as legitimate as physical pain. It's experienced in the same place as your brain as physical pain. It's as intense and as real in your brain as physical pain. And yet mental health we treat like, you just need to harden up, have a teaspoon of concrete and harden up, man up. So being able to come to that space and say to people experiencing depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress, there is a reason why your brain is doing this to you, and what you're experiencing is valid and real and chemical and so many other components that I think I see the weight kind of lift off the patients when I explain to them, this isn't your fault. Part of this is chemical, and there is ways that we can help to resolve that. I think that's been an amazing gift to be able to bring the neuroscience into the mental health space.
Yeah, and definitely a very privileged space for yourself to sit in as well. It's really great to hear that you're still working in that space while you're publishing a book. And we also saw that you've got an app, Assert Yourself, as well, which obviously you're a very busy person. So it's great that you're still kind of keeping your finger on the pulse as such, and still kind of engaging in that. I guess, like, in terms of how to break up with friends and how that all came about, one thing that kind of stood out to us when we were just talking before, when we just had another podcast, kind of that need that all of us have as humans to feel like we belong and feel like we fit in. And sometimes that can lead us down the path of connecting with the wrong friends or finding ourselves in toxic friendships. So how did this all start for you? Why did you decide to focus on friendships of all things?
Good question, Dan. Okay, so there's two answers. One is the science answer, the professional. Well, I'm a neuropsychologist, and I love science, and I love relationships, and I love the science of relationships. And then there's the real answer, which is I experienced, I thought I was experiencing friendship, but it was more like friendship. And that is the real answer. And it hurt. And I was like, why aren't we talking about this? And everybody who I encountered, through my 20s, my siblings, my friends, people I counted in work settings, they were all describing the same phenomena to me, which was toxic friends, overt toxicity and also subtle covert manipulation. And I realized, I had this awakening when I hit 30, that, we're not talking about this stuff. And I don't know how it happened, Dan. I just started writing. My little fingers just started writing, and a year later I had a book, and here we are. So it just happened.
Well, it sounds like there was a deep why, because you experienced, I guess, the downfalls of having potentially bad friendships or trying to find your tribe as such, which for people listening, and we experience it as well, like that is a very hard journey to find valuable friends in your life who lift you up. Do you have, obviously if people read the book, I'm sure there's lots of kind of guidance in there, but how firstly do you recognize that you're in a toxic friendship?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will quickly touch on, there is a phenomena called didactic withdrawals, which is where your energy shifts as you go through different life stages. So university, working, parenthood, marriage, retirement, and your energies shift and your identity changes. So the people who you're close to changes as well. So it is really normal for you to go through different stages with friends during your life. It's very normal for friends to come in and out of how close they are with you and into your inner circle, and then maybe gravitate away from you at different stages in your life. That's totally normal, first and foremost. So please don't stress if anyone's listening out there going, people aren't as close to me now that I've had my first baby. Like, that's so normal. But I suppose in terms of spotting toxic friends, you and I, me and Eamon and you would be here all day if we listed all the toxic behaviors that a friend could potentially demonstrate. Like, some of them are super obvious, really like in your face. They're so in your face. They like slap you in the face like a wet fish. They bully you. They tell you to shut up. They swear at you. They're degrading to you. And they're just like clearly that bullying friend who we've stuck with for God knows why. I know why. I talk about it. And then there's the other reasons, which are the more covert and subtle behaviors where we don't even necessarily realize it's happening. That person is kind of manipulative, or they're passive aggressive, or they gaslight us, or they're just not there emotionally to support us in our darkest hours when we're going through things, and we sit at the pub with them for 5 hours and yet they haven't once asked us about the breakup we had with our girlfriends. So there are these subtle behaviors that are really hard to spot, and it's only when you're sort of laying in bed in the middle of the night having that conversation in your own head with the person where you realize, hang on a minute, did he actually say that to me again? That you sort of start to clue into, could this potentially be quite toxic for me? And admitting that can be quite hard sometimes.
There's a lot of elements to this, and I suppose one of them is like, the friend themselves might not even be intentionally trying to do that to you. They might be jealous, or there's a very, like, so many different reasons that the friend might be doing that and like displaying these toxic behaviors towards you. They might not, intentionally be trying to actually harm you. And I suppose to zoom out, something else I want to address is that it's like, finding valuable friends, as Dan said, like, just to hit on this point again, it's like, we go to school with like 50 people in our grade, and then we, at the end of that, we're still friends with those people or whatever. It's like, why do people think that like you're just going to magically find these amazing friends in high school or whatever, and you see so many people still hang out with people from high school when it's like you've only ever actually interacted with 50 people or so, and you haven't actively looked for, it's like it just seems like so random that people still hang out with people that they don't actually really enjoy hanging out with. And that's like, that's a comfortable thing to be in. So it's like, even if you don't have toxic friends as such or bad friendships, you could just be in friendships that aren't really actually fulfilling you or giving you like an amazing, bringing your life up, which is very, very hard to find, is what I'm really getting at.
Mic drop. Yeah.
So what are some like potential ways to, a lot of people are potentially in those relationships where they don't even realize that it's as good as it could be. What are some potential ways to find some of those friends?
Yeah. So number one, longevity does not equal quality. I'll say that again. Longevity does not equal quality. So, just because you've been friends with someone for a really long time, it doesn't mean we should give them a hall pass to treat us like crap. And sometimes we do that because we have been friends with this person for such a long time and we have so many precious memories with them. And you can honor that and be like, I loved high school with you, but we're different people now. And that's okay. Your brain gets a little bit addicted to regular patterns. So your brain is like this lazy little beast. It's all about, keeping the status quo and keeping homeostatic kind of status with things always being exactly level. So if you've got all these patterns in your brain that are, this person makes me feel this way, irrespective of that, maybe you feel crappy when you see them, your brain is still familiar with that pattern and you're familiar with these people, and there are all sorts of scary emotions that come with putting yourself out there to meet new people, like the flood of adrenaline and cortisone you get when you walk into a social setting where you haven't met people before, and that's scary, and it's developing new pathways in your brain, which is forging totally new territory, which is really intimidating to start with. It's you changing your set point of your homeostasis of what's normal for you. So you have to push yourself a little bit, and it hurts a little bit, and it's scary a little bit, and your heart will race, and your tummy will feel like it has butterflies in it. And you're going to be like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. But actually you will reset at a new level with new pathways and new people, and you'll feel better eventually. And it does actually get better. In terms of finding new friends, this is where we have to be real with ourselves, guys. The question is, have you actually tried to make new friends? Like, that's the real question. Did you actually put a concerted effort into trying? Because we have mechanisms nowadays. We have Bumble Friends, we have meetup groups. There are ways you can go and do a hobby that you enjoy, something that gives you pleasure, and meet like-minded people, meet your tribe, as Dan was saying before. That word tribe is so important because neurobiologically, you do form tribes, and they are a close-knit group of people who are like-minded. And the literature tells us over time, your tribe shrinks in and the people around you become closer and closer to your core values. And the beautiful benefits of friendship, and there are so many benefits we can talk about in a second, but it's not about how many friends you have. All the literature is telling us it's the quality of those friendships. It's not how many you have. So you don't need oodles and oodles of mediocre friends. You just need a few true friends to really reap the benefits of friendship.
I definitely feel that. And it's so funny because like sometimes your mind goes, oh, I need to keep hanging out with more people or this person or that person. But every time you leave or whatever, you never, it's like, did I actually get, quality experience from that lifts me up? But it's like your brain can also trick you into this scarcity mindset of, oh, I only have these 2 or 3 like really good friends, even though they are really good friends. I need to find more, even though it's like you're actually getting all the fulfillment you need. You're just kind of afraid to lose it. So I suppose to hit on that, as you mentioned, like what are some of the major benefits of having, really quality friendships?
Yeah. So what the longitudinal research is telling us, so this is just research done over decades and decades and decades, is that people who have good quality friendships, and this is not family, this is not work colleagues, this is friendships specifically, they're found to have better cardiovascular health, they live longer, it staves off things like dementia, they're more successful, they're academically better off, they're financially better off. I go through a whole chapter of all the scientific research about good friends. And I suppose the scary part of the literature is the flip side of that, which is a toxic friend, a strained friendship is associated with worse cardiovascular health, greater chronic illness, and the health effects on par with obesity and smoking. And it also shortens your lifespan to be exposed to these people. So it's kind of like that cost that we didn't even know it was costing us. We thought, oh, it's okay, I'll just keep Jim around, even though he's a bit of a jackass and he's always putting me down. But actually, Jim is costing you on a neurobiological level and a cardiovascular level over years and years and years.
Jim's costing your life by the sound of it.
Yeah, bloody Jim.
Wow. So I guess like in terms of looking at the neuroscience behind surrounding yourself potentially with either mediocre friends or friends who are, I guess, kind of traumatizing to some extent. Like I guess what I'd like to understand is, do sitting around people who are either manipulative or undermining you or passive, does the neuroscience show similarities to trauma in the way that the brain actually adapts to this?
So it's always guesswork. So everything about, as you guys would know, everything about neuroscience studies at the moment is all guesswork. We're kind of theorizing as best we can, and we get correlates that this thing seems to be associated with this thing, and we put our best guess forward. And what some of the leading researchers at the moment are guessing is that in your brain, so you have this you have your cerebellum down here, and then you have your kind of amygdala and your limbic system here, and somewhere in the middle between that you have this thing called a vagus nerve, like not like Viva Las Vegas, but the vagus nerve. And this little nerve is like it's the nerve that modulates the fight or flight response. So we have this theory called the polyvagal theory, and this is the idea that the vagus nerve is the thing that tells you when there's a threat and when there's when you should be calm. So when there's a threat, it signals off your sympathetic nervous system to go into fight or flight. And when there's no threat, then it signals off your parasympathetic nervous system to be calm and release oxytocin and form bonds with other people. So when you have a friend who's acting more like a threat, that confuses the vagus nerve. It actually loses its ability to modulate its response and turn on and off this fight or flight response. And people sometimes think, oh, that's okay because my friend's not, punching me in the face, so that's not going to happen to me. But a threat doesn't just mean a physical threat like a robber or a fire or like Donald Trump tweeting something. It's not like a literal physical threat like that. It can also be an emotional threat as well. So they told me to shut up, or they gave me that look again, or I felt unsafe. I felt attacked. I felt anxious around them. That's also triggering off your fight or flight response, which I'm sure you guys talk about probably all the time, and all the hormones that accompany things like that. So, stress, cortisone, adrenaline, muscles tightening up, suppression of your digestive system, and a myriad of cardiovascular issues that, if it happens every day or most days for a very long period of time, can really cause general wear and tear on your body.
And there's from what you were saying, there's some big signs that are potentially obvious that things aren't right in a friendship, but there's also like subtle nuances, I guess. Like maybe you might leave feeling like your needs weren't met, or maybe the conversation was slightly one-sided, or whatever that may be. So I guess I'm wondering, at what point do you recognize, okay, I need to cut this person? Or do you recognize maybe I need to limit my time with that person? Because it's quite a big thing to cut someone completely out of your life. So how do you kind of make that decision?
Yeah, well, you get the book. You buy the book. That's the ultimate, isn't it? It's deciding, do I adjust my effort levels? Do I cut them out completely? And part of the book is taking you through this behavioral analysis of their behavior, of your behavior, why they might be doing it, why you're staying in it. It's got lots of questionnaires about, your own friendship capacity, your own ability to assess what's going on for you, and then come to a place where you decide what you want to do. But I suppose the important thing to note is it's a considered and measured process. It's not about breaking up with someone in the heat of the moment when, you're 7 beers down and Jim has just, borrowed another $50, which he's not going to repay. That's not the time to do a friend breakup. It's about having integrity, Dan, and it's about having self-respect. And you need to get to a place where you have that self-respect. If you are a good friend, if you give support, if you give trust, if you give affection, if you respect them, then you should expect that in return. And expecting something from a friend is not a bad thing. In society, we've fallen into this societal norm where we think that it's really honorable and it's really normal to give in a friendship and expect nothing in return. And that is really altruistic. That's beautiful. But it actually is setting you up for burnout, being taken for granted, and for people to treat you poorly if they're a bit toxic towards you. So you are allowed to expect something from a friend. Expect them to act like a friend. And if they don't, you need to reconsider how much effort, time, and money you're putting into that friendship.
This is really, really fascinating because I guess I'm beginning to learn, I'm beginning to realize that Dan is a really toxic friend, and I'm going to have to end this podcast, I think. So I think I'm done and I'm going to bounce out.
Oh, Dan. Bye, Felicia.
Something I would really love to know is what, obviously you're very interested in this topic. What are some things that you stumbled upon in your journey of researching this that really surprised you?
Oh, well, okay. So if I may, as humbly put this forward as a female, toxic masculinity. I'm sure you guys have heard that word before. I don't like that word. I think it implies that there's something inherently evil about being a man, and there's not at all. We all have masculine traits. We all have feminine traits. It's just where you fall on the spectrum. But I was startled by the literature on male friendships, and learning that in Australia, 75% of suicides are men. 75%. That means every 6 minutes, a man is taking his life. And there has actually been quite a lot of research into what is going on with our boys, our fathers, our sons, our brothers. And what the literature is telling us is it's loneliness and a lack of belonging. And I know Beyond Blue did a study into males' experience of friendship, and it was startling to find that 80% of men were reporting that they were unhappy with the quality and the number of friends they had, and that they wished that they could open up more to their friends and communicate about emotional topics more, but they perceived that the friend would be uncomfortable with that, and it would make them, their mates, feel uncomfortable with them, so they don't do it. And they wish the other friend would open up first so that they could as well. And it's sort of like you blokes are all playing a bit of emotional chicken. It's like, who's going to go first? So I just kind of wish that we were talking about that a lot more, so that men out knew, you know, if you're longing to talk about the breakup or the divorce, or that you're having a really bloody tough time, your mate probably wants to talk about the same thing as well. So don't be afraid to bring it up. Yeah,
that's massive. And I think from doing the podcast as well, we've connected with some mental health advocates within the men's mental health space. And that's something that's kind of come through to the forefront, where, you know, men potentially don't feel like it's the right thing to do as a man to talk emotionally, or it shows weakness to talk emotionally, or even just to ask the question of, you know, how are you going? Like, you just broke up with your girlfriend. Like, is everything all right with you? Like, just asking a simple question that I guess a lot of the time, like, I sometimes take for granted, because I am so, like, I guess emotionally intelligent, or I'm okay, I'm comfortable to talk about these things. Yeah. It doesn't kind of
you're woke.
Yeah.
He likes to think
I'm woke. Yeah. So I guess, like, do you have any ideas about that? Like, we've had a lot of men particularly come on and talk about how they can change this taboo topic. Is there anything else that you think you could add to that in terms of helping men open up more?
2 things. Okay. 1, you need to actually speak emotionally. So the dynamics of a male friendship has been found to be all about physical activities. So women will get together to just talk, whereas men get together to do physical stuff. So they'll go play golf, they'll go have a beer, they'll go watch sport, but it's not about talking. So they're physically close to each other, but they're not emotionally close to each other. So number 1, you need to talk about your feelings. And I know I can hear that, I can practically feel the cringes from the listeners right now. Talk about my feelings. Yeah, you need to talk about your feelings. Number 2, don't tease each other. So another part of the literature was this tendency for men to tease one another, and that's a way of broaching uncomfortable emotional when you've accidentally strayed into the territory of being emotional in conversation. Men will tend to break the discomfort by teasing one another. If you can resist the urge to tease your mate when he said something emotional, then you're already like 5 steps ahead of the crowd with breaking down these stigmatizing barriers, because you think that you're stopping the awkwardness and you're helping him to feel less awkward by teasing him. But what you're actually doing is reinforcing, you're not supposed to talk about those emotional things, so I'm going to tease you for doing it. And even if you think you're poking fun at him, you're actually kind of you're continuing to send out the message, we're not supposed to be talking about that. So let's make light of it and move on. So say the thing, say the emotional thing, ask the mate the question, are you doing okay? But seriously, are you actually doing okay? Tell me how you've been the last couple of weeks. And 2, don't tease each other. Don't call each other a pussy. Don't laugh at each other. Don't say, oh yeah, just a weekly. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Just resist the urge. And if you hear a mate doing it, tell him to stop.
It's such a common social convention that that's the way to solve the issue. And again, as you said, it's just a reaction where you're like, I guess I'd just do this now. And it's like, but you don't realize that that's actually having such a net positive effect, even though you could kind of laugh it off and go, oh yeah, it's all good. Like, so I suppose spend a bit of time on male friendships there. Anything stand out that you learned about female friendships?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's been an internal journey for myself, being a woman and learning about these things. I think one of the most beautiful things I've learned about, my journey with friendship is that, it's okay to put your mental health first. It's okay to say, my mental health is not in a place where I can continue to put the time and the money and the effort into this. And it's actually the most empowering thing is just owning that. Like, I'm not able to continue to put the level of effort into this friendship that I have in the past because it's not serving me in a healthy way. And just getting permission to be like, that's okay for you to say that. And it's okay for you to own that. And it's okay for you to say, I actually need to put my mental health first. So I think in Australia, we're very big on mateship and always putting yourself out there and doing favors and doing everything for the people that we love. If you deeply care about someone and you love deeply and you give deeply and you are a bloody good mate, that's actually so beautiful and something you should cherish within yourself, because not everybody's like that. So you have something beautiful to offer there. Don't give it away. Don't give it away so lightly. Give it to people. Bestow that gift on people who deserve it. So if they're treating you kindly in return, go crazy. Be an amazing friend. Do it. But if that person leaves you feeling a husk of a person, feeling drained, feeling taken for granted, then it's time to reassess how much time, money, and effort you're putting in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing, we've spoken about friendships for men and friendships for females, but like a thing that stands out to me, which we kind of touched on at the beginning, is like for parents who are sending their kids off to school and, they're going into this controlled environment where it's almost like a petri dish of just experimentation that you have no idea who you're going to be confronted with, and how do you even make sense of the right type of people to connect with in a school environment? Like, do you have advice for parents or for kids who are going to school? Because, for me, like reflecting on when I moved to Australia from England from England to Australia, I kind of struggled to fit in with people. And I found myself almost naturally trying to be a different person to fit in. So I guess that's like one thing that really stands out, like not trying to fit in, like actually just being true to yourself. But do you have any advice for kids or for parents who might be struggling with finding their tribe or finding good friends?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question, Dan. And I wish that I could give the all-encompassing, amazing answer that'll be like, boom, your kid will be amazing and successful in life. What I suppose the golden rule is make sure your child has a good mental health base and that they understand their emotions and that you can talk with them about negative and positive emotions so that they're not afraid to share those feelings with you. And Dan Segal has some amazing books called The Whole Brain Child, where he talks about how you can chat with your kid about the emotions that they're experiencing and acknowledging when there are crappy times and when your child will come home and have days where they've had a fight with their friends and when they feel excluded and when they feel left out. So as parents, the best thing we can do is not brush those feelings aside. It's to sit with the child and to talk through the emotion with the child and help the child integrate their own brain, so that you're helping the child integrate their language side, their left hemisphere, with their emotional side, their right hemisphere. You're helping them to integrate it by talking about the emotions. So you as a parent sitting there going, you felt this way because little Jimmy did blah to you, and letting that child express those emotions and process those emotions and understand those emotions is a really beautiful gift that you can give your child that will serve them when they're an adult trying to understand emotions as an adult. So yeah, my advice is don't be afraid of the scary, sad emotions. Don't try to brush them under the carpet. Talk with your kids about it.
I love that the bad guy, whether it's an adult or a kid, it's always Jim.
Yeah.
Jim, he's not getting a good rap.
Definitely not. We've gotten so much value so far on the friendship topic, and we really, really appreciate that. You've obviously done a lot of work in the field, not just on friendship. So what are you working on right now, and what's next for you, Hannah?
Oh, God. Oh, that's a good question, Eamon. Right now, I'm just surviving. It's been a busy year. Yeah, it's been a busy year. Like this year, the book came out. I started a practice in Cremorne, in Sydney, and it's been a really hectic time. So I'm just allowing myself to have this period of enjoying the labor of love that is self-publishing a book on an area that means so much to me and I believe in so deeply. And then hearing these beautiful messages that I'm getting from people each day saying, oh my God, I experienced this and I went through this, and it was so nice to hear that I'm not alone. I feel very compelled to sit in this space for a little while and just breathe. And maybe next year, who knows? Maybe next year there'll be another book, or God, I don't know. We'll see. Watch this space.
Well, it's great. I think not enough people are talking about this, and it came at a very appropriate time given the whole situation of 2020. Obviously, it was quite hard with the digital space before this, but even now it's just made it even harder to reach out and find friends. And I think we've chatted about it on one of our podcasts as well, about your tribe and finding valuable friends. Thank you again. Like it's been so amazing to get so much value out of this. Obviously, everyone that's listening needs to go and check out the book, because obviously there's going to be a lot of value in there. We just saw it on Audible, and I've got a couple of credits, so I'll jump on that for sure. We want to thank you so much for coming on, Hannah. It's been amazing. Do you have any parting words?
Thanks so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And don't forget, the number one buffer in staving off things like neurodegenerative things like dementia is social interaction and always learning. So being social with you guys has kept my brain healthy, and learning something is keeping our brains healthy. So keep listening to MetaMinds, because it's really keeping your brain healthy.
That's the best advice I've heard all year.
Great advice.
Anything else you want to say, Dan?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Thank you very much.